Hello, it's Lord Slaw here, and today we're starting a new series which is the problems with New Who. I'm sure, as I have, many of you have been called classic elitists or haters because of our opinions on New Who. And, to some extent, there are some people out there who genuinely are classic elitists who do just mindlessly hate New Who. But the point of this series is to show there is problems there. We're not just being elitists, that some of us, like me, have genuine reasons for having a distaste of New Who and being so angry about it and just wanting it to change because we can see what's wrong with it and it wouldn't be that difficult to solve. And so what I'm hoping is through this series is a lot of people who don't agree with me can see at least why I would have my opinions, and maybe some of them may even change their opinion if they think my argument is worded strongly enough, but that's less likely. But I hope it happens. I hope that I enlighten some people, but again, on the less likely side. But either way, I hope you enjoy. So, the issue I'm going to be talking about today is the length of episodes. As you know, with New Who, most stories are only 45 minutes long, with the occasional two-parter. Even less so in Moffat era, barring Series 9, which did have quite a few two-parters, although I felt a lot of them were an abuse of the two-part system or can't really be counted as two-parters, but that's probably a video for another day. Let's talk about the general problem here. So what is the problem? Let's get into that first. It's just the fact that 45 minutes is not enough time for Doctor Who, because each story you have to introduce a new world, a new society, a new set of characters mostly, develop them all, develop the story, develop a villain, get it from, to build up to a climax and then to be resolved, fluidly, to make a successful episode at least. And because you're so pressed for time with the 45 minutes format, you often get episodes like The Power of Three, which are resolved in the last few minutes with a wave of the sonic screwdriver. And yeah, it causes some real problems where there just isn't enough time to tell your story. I know the things I said don't apply to every episode, as some are set in places we've already been to or are set on Earth, where we already know a lot of the people there. But you know what I mean, generally that's what Doctor Who has to do. And 45 minutes just is not enough time to do all that cohesively, especially when New Who has a particular fascination with centering episodes around characters, and you certainly can't tell a good story with developed characters and then have the companion, almost this episode be centered around the companion as well. There's just not enough time to do all that, and you do get a lot of episodes which feel rushed and feel like ideas are being wasted, and that is why they are quite a big problem for New Who. So I know why they're doing this. Serialization is a bit old hat, a bit what they used to do, whereas 45-minute to an hour episodes is what most shows these days do. That's the new norm. And, while that's all well and good, I don't think it works for Doctor Who because with most shows, all you've got to do is have the show in the same location, or roughly the same location as the previous episode, with roughly the same set of characters, maybe a few differences here and there. It's all in the same kind of place. Whereas Doctor Who, every story goes anywhere. It can go anywhere, and each time most of the time it's got to set up a whole new world, a whole new set of characters to develop. Because you're not probably not going to see these characters again. Maybe one or two might come back in some stories, but that's a very rare instance. And so you can see why that kind of format doesn't really translate well because it just doesn't work like most other shows. And that's what makes it special. That's why it's so remembered. That's why it's so loved. It's that element of it can go anywhere, do anything, and it's different all the time, which is why it's so good. But you can't put the norm from other shows and place it on Doctor Who because 45 minutes is just not enough time for a Doctor Who episode. It can't do all the things it needs to do, which other shows which use that format successfully don't need to do. And so there is where the problem really lies. So, from what I can see, there are two possible ways to fix this problem. The first one is the most likely that they will do, and the second one is my preferred option, even though it's less likely. So, the first option is 60-minute episodes. What you can do with that extra 15 minutes is there's so much. You can make a satisfying resolution, which is much better than you could do if you only had 45 minutes. You could develop a character that was lacking. You could do all sorts. It would exponentially improve so much, like so many different episodes. It's ridiculous. Of course, I don't think that's perfect. as it's not my preferred option. I think the classics firmly established that an hour and a half is the ideal time for a Doctor Who story because there's a lot you have to do. It's not like a normal TV program, and you've got a lot more to explore. You've got a lot more to build. You have got a lot more to develop, which just can't be done in 45 minutes. And with some ideas which are particularly long, even an hour. I'm not saying that some ideas can't work in 45 minutes. I mean, you've got episodes like Midnight, Blink, and Turn Left, which don't need any longer. They work perfectly in 45 minutes. So I don't think 45-minute episodes should be abandoned completely. I just think maybe one a season at most, and have mostly two-parters and three-parters, as they tend to, like, two-parters tend to work a lot better, as in two 45-minute episodes, because an hour and a half seems to be the time which for most ideas in Doctor Who works. That's the amount of time they need. Occasionally a three-parter. I'm a fan of the longer episodes, but I know some people aren't. And yeah, a lot of the times longer episodes don't work because they're just longer for the sake of being longer. Whereas I think longer episodes should only be there when it's something which can be developed that much, because you can have an idea which spans that amount of time, especially in something like Doctor Who. And so, yeah, I would say that serialization is my preferred option, where there's one part is like, one a season, mostly two parters with the occasional three parter, but 60-minute episodes if I can't get that. So that just about wraps up this video. I think I've dissected that fully enough. I understand why they've chose to do this format. I've isolated the reason why it's a problem with Doctor Who, and I've suggested an improvement. If that isn't constructive criticism, I don't know what is. And if you enjoyed this, well, please give it a thumb up and tell me in the comments so that I may be encouraged to make more in the future. And I'll see you back next time in another video.